Good evening, everybody. My name is Tim Sika, and I'm here tonight representing the San Francisco Film Critics Circle. And I'm going to beg your indulgence here for just 45 seconds to tell you that a little bit about us. The San Francisco Film Critics Circle is a nonprofit service organization of San Francisco Bay Area film critics, reviewers, writers, authors, and editors working in a variety of media, including print, online, radio, and television. Our primary purpose is to recognize cinematic achievements by gathering to award the top films and filmmakers of each calendar year. In addition, the SFFCC promotes and lobbies on behalf of the membership and provides moral support to the local film community. Our critics aim to guide local and national audiences to the best in film by offering individual and collective wisdom, as well as by fostering discussion among film professionals and film lovers. I'm going to introduce to you a film professional in just a second. You are the film lovers. The key and pertinent phrase for our purposes here tonight is that we aim to guide local and national audiences to the best in film, and that is some of what you just experienced tonight while you watch this movie, Manchester by the Sea. And to my right here, coming out, is this writer-director, also writer-director of Margaret, and You Can Count on Me. Please extend a warm San Francisco welcome to Mr. Kenneth Lonergan.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thanks very much.
By the way, Ken just received, 3-4 days ago, you got the HFA Screenwriting Award for this movie.
That's right.
Congratulations. What is that? Is that a new award, or?
It's a pretty new award. It's the Hollywood Film Association. It's the Hollywood Awards, it's called. I don't know what it is. It's great to get it, though. Thank you all for coming out to be cheered up on this wonderful evening. I really appreciate it, actually. It's nice to see you all here.
When I first saw this movie, I thought that, God, these characters give new meaning to the phrase, leading quiet lives of desperation. And I saw this movie on Monday, and I need to get this out just because I don't know. I don't know if I could have gotten through it today, the first day after the election.
Yeah, I feel like I'm leading a quiet life of desperation right now.
Are you uncomfortable right now talking?
I feel horrible. Of course. I mean, not because of you guys. I'm glad you guys I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy you're here. But of course, I mean, I assume 10% polling for Trump in San Francisco. Most of you are not any happier about the results than I am, being from liberal Upper West Side Manhattan. No, it's a very shocking and distressing day, and I'm worried for our future. But I hope there's something positive to be gained from it. But it's pretty daunting, the immediate future, I'd say.
Well, I guess we should talk about this movie.
Let's talk about this cheerful, happy-go-lucky, zany movie.
I'm going to ask you the easy question first. What is this movie about, Ken?
Well, it's not an easy question because
I was trying.
I'm sorry. My sense of irony has finally been destroyed. You don't know why they kept saying that in 2001. My irony was just fine after that. Now it's really wearing thin. I think it's about people carrying burdens that are too great for them, and about how much they love each other while they're carrying them, and how hard they try to struggle through, even though they can't bear what's happened to them. And I think it's about the two things that go on simultaneously, which is this incredible pain that people have to weather, and this incredible feeling of love and attachment that they have for each other at the same time, among other things, I hope. It's about teenage rock bands and hockey, which go on despite everything, and I think that's good.
Yeah, the emotional disconnect in the film is so palpable. It's so palpable.
Well, I don't know. How do you mean that exactly?
I think what struck me most about the film, well, there's a couple things that were going through my head, but when I was watching the film and paying attention to the dialogue, the movie struck me as almost like a play, but it played very much like a movie that breathed. And I guess I'm just acknowledging the way it was directed. I thought was maybe a lot that you brought to the direction maybe would not have been on the page. And that sense of awkwardness, that's I mean, there were times I wanted to just grab these people and say what it's just get it out. That's what I meant by emotional disconnect.
I see. Well, thank you. I think. I mean, thank
and then
you.
Actually, there was another question in there, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
I can handle two questions at once.
I want you to respond to what I just said.
I think it's in the page because it's people don't often say exactly what's on their minds, and when they do, it's not always so comfortable,
right?
And it's not always easy to react to, and I think that. I think these people are all very well aware of their emotional lives. They're just nothing to say about certain things at certain times.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to say? It's not a TV movie,
Right.
and life is not a TV movie where you have a little speech about exactly how you feel and exactly what happened and exactly what you did right and exactly what you did wrong and what you've learned.
Right.
And thank God. And I think they're pretty aware of everything that's going on with themselves and with each other. There's not a lot to do about it except try to do their duty and take care of each other as best they can, which I think they're all trying to do, which I like. One reason why I like the characters so much, particularly as embodied by the actors who are sensational.
God, the actors are amazing, all of them, across the board. Yeah.
And you try to make room for that when you're writing and directing. You try to make room, if you write everything down, there's nothing left for the actors to do. So you have to try to follow the line of the behavior in your mind, and then let there be room for the behavior in the script, and let there be room for the behavior to develop and really flower in the performances.
Can you articulate maybe a little bit what the actors did bring, maybe that wasn't necessarily on the page?
Well, so much. I mean, I like to think, again, that it was in the page, that it was there to be as a springboard or a suggestion or a direction to go in, and but they bring everything. I mean, it's hard to, that is hard to answer because the actors bring everything. They bring their whole selves to something that I just imagined. And I may have imagined it very vividly, but that's quite different from actually having to stand up and say the words and be that person in that situation, whether it's whether it's one of the more intense emotional scenes or whether it's a lighter scene. That's the fascinating challenge of acting, is that they have to be that. The goal is to feel genuine the whole time they have to perform, whether that's for 2 seconds in a 2-second scene or for 3 minutes in a 3-minute scene, or whether the house you're watching your house burn down with your children inside it, or whether you're making out on a bed or getting dressed quickly because your mom's knocking at the door, or sitting in a room not knowing what to say to a man that you've been set up with or a woman you've been set up with. They have to really be in those situations. It's really difficult.
The piece seems very personal, very heartfelt, but I understand that initially the idea came from Matt Damon and John Krasinski, right? And then they went to you to write the script.
That's right.
Is that that's a little kind of different for you, isn't it?
Well, not. It's what's different about it is that what is a process that I would normally embrace as an assignment or a job to make money or to make a living, which is I make a living doing screenwriting or rewrites, and sometimes I'll write an idea that someone brings to me and I'll pass it back off to them and then go away while they do whatever they're going to do with it.
Okay, yeah.
The difference was that they brought it to me and left it with me.
Like Analyze This and those other movies?
Well, that movie, that's... Yes, in
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Exactly, Rocky and Bullwinkle, for example. I didn't I didn't decide to write a movie about Rocky and Bullwinkle. I don't own the rights. Someone came to me and said, "Do you want a job?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "Rocky and Bullwinkle." I said, "Sure." But I finished my script and gave it to the director and the producers, and they did whatever they did with it. Analyze This. I wrote the spec script for that, but again, it was bought by a studio and rewritten by 14 different people before it was filmed 8 years later. So this, however, was the only time I've ever taken someone else's idea and really made it my own in a way that I became attached to it, and it wasn't just trying to do a good job for someone else. It became very personal to me. But because it was Matt Damon and because I had complete trust in him, even at the point in the project, which was most of the life of the screenplay, I thought he was going to be directing the movie. I knew that he would treat the script with the same respect as if it had been a play that I had written. So I felt very comfortable giving it all of my personal feelings. and treating it as if I had thought of it myself.
But you weren't originally attached to direct. Could you talk about how that came about?
It was pretty simple. Matt was going to direct the film, and then when the screenplay was finally finished, he suggested that I direct it. He remembers it slightly differently from the way I remember it. I remember it as his schedule not allowing for him to direct it, and he remembers it thinking that I since I wrote the script, it just came out as a very Kenny script, and Kenny should direct it was his thought about it, and whichever one is right, it was nice for me because I was reluctant at first, but then I thought about it and I realized I did want to direct it, and I'm glad I did.
Have you lived down your reputation of not being able to cut anything down?
I didn't know I had one, so yes.
I'm going to open it up here in a second, but you said that there's a scene in the movie that I'm going to reference here, but you said in the Film Society of Lincoln Center interview Q&A that the scene between Michelle Williams and Casey Affleck, where they're trying to come to terms with their past with each other, was for you hard to watch.
Well, it's just hard to watch for me, the same as anybody else, I guess, because they're just in so much pain, and I find it very moving and makes me cry. It made me cry when they were filming it, and it makes me cry most of the time when I'm watching it, unless I'm in an audience and there are people I know sitting near me. Then I become self-conscious. I don't want people to see me sitting there weeping at my own work. It seems slightly masturbatory. But really, it's their performance and not my own artistic virtues that I'm admiring. They're really just great.
God,
and
they're
great so scene, emotional, and they're just so trying so hard to be nice to each other, and they're just at such odds, and they're never going to be together again. It's just I find it to be very moving and painful, but that's how I meant that.
Yeah. The script, the flashback structure of it, could you talk about that, how you arrived at that?
Sure. The first draft of the screenplay didn't go very well. I didn't have a good way into it. I was bored with it. I didn't like how it was going. And after I got halfway or 2/3 of the way through it, and I started over. I threw out everything that I had, and I started over again with him shoveling the snow. And I reconceived his character pretty radically. He really didn't have a character the first draft. He was just a kind of a cipher, the main guy to whom things happened, and that wasn't very interesting to me. So I just thought of him. I don't know. I can't even tell you how. I just reimagined him in some way, and he became more vivid to me. And then starting with him at work gave the story a little dramatic feeling to it, because you see him at work, and as you see now, more or less, he's there. He's shoveling snow. He's very strange the way he interacts with people. Something's clearly very wrong with him, and that creates a little interest in, well, who is this guy and what's his problem? And then it became very natural to fill in, to start weaving what had been the first part of the script into the beginning as flashbacks going back in time. And I worked through the timetable really carefully, and I had to write down exactly how many years ago each flashback was for myself, just so I could keep track of the events. But they eventually aligned themselves so that they were more or less in chronological order. Mm-hmm. And that gave me a structure, and I had a much better time with the second draft because of it.
What makes a movie script like this go on that infamous Hollywood blacklist of most liked but unmade scripts?
I didn't know it was on one.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It was. We got the script financed twice in the year after it was finished. It was financed once with Matt in it, and then he dropped out because of his schedule, so we lost the financing. And then too much.
I've got really crappy information.
No, I don't know how many places they took this. I wasn't involved in that. The producers took the script around to a number of places and ended up with Kimberly Stewart, who very bravely and generously decided to finance it as her first project, mm-hmm. getting into the movie business, and I think took a risk, because it's risky. I don't know how risky it is, but it's not obviously commercial material. But we were shooting the movie within a year of the completion of the script, so to me, that's not exactly my idea of a struggle.
Yeah.
But it may be that they raced through every studio in town and got a no until they got to Kimberly. But if they did it really quickly.
Maybe nobody ever told you.
Maybe they didn't, but I don't know. I wasn't part of the struggle to find the financing, but that to me is not a struggle.
Questions? You know, I would love to run the mic so I don't have to repeat the question. So I'm going to do that, and then people can just look at you. They don't have to look at me. Hand up. Okay, good. And it's just so everybody can hear you. I'm just going to squeeze through here.
I was in Munich, and they have a little Nerf ball with a microphone inside it, and they throw it to each other in the audience. It was really cool.
I'm just curious if you're going to make the script available for people to study.
Yeah, I'll make it available for people to read. If they want to study it, that's really their call. It'll be published at some point this year, I'm sure.
All right, here we go. Another question.
First of all, congratulations. That really was amazing. I grew up with a father who had the quintessential Boston accent, and I always find that so few actors can play the part of somebody with an amazing Boston accent. Did you write that part with Casey Affleck in mind? I know he's from Cambridge, so he could fall right back into that, but did you write it with somebody native to Boston?
I wrote it with that, with that regionalism in mind, yeah, but I didn't write it with Casey in mind, especially. Actually, Matt was going to play that part and direct the movie, and he ended up doing neither. But he very generously suggested we give the role to Casey, which I agreed to immediately once Matt became unavailable. But I certainly wanted the characters to speak, not all of them, but most, a selection of them to speak with that regional accent. I'm glad I hope you liked it. We tried really hard to make it authentic.
Hi. I was over here.
Yeah, there's another mic in the audience, which is great. Okay,
I'm telling you, that soccer ball thing is really good.
I thought it was really interesting that the most articulate character was the teenager of all the characters, and I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
What would you like to hear about it?
Well, just that the choice, because normally teenagers might be introverts, and that's the kind of typical way to see a teenager. But in this case, he's the only one that's very outspoken and seems to be reaching out for stuff, for attention and taking care of his uncle almost.
Yeah, I think I wanted him to have a really full life that he didn't want to leave, because I didn't want there to be two morose, sullen, emotionally beaten up characters, because that would have been a bit too much, I think, and a bit one note and a bit grim. I don't have it. I try not to shy away from things that are serious and as you see, the movie is about one of the most worst things that could happen to anyone, but it doesn't happen to everyone, and so when you're having these painful life experiences, whether they're more along the ordinary order of your parents dying or your friends dying or some more ordinary catastrophe befalling you, even then, the rest of the world's going about its business. Your friends' parents are still alive and kicking, or they passed away a long time ago, or it's everyone's experiences. It plays out differently at different times, and that's part of what makes. I just find that really interesting, and also that's the way it is. So that's how I wanted to portray this situation, and also the central conflict in the story. Just to talk about the structure of the story, is that the kid wants to stay and the uncle can't stand to be there. So I wanted to beef that up as much as possible and make him one of these rare people who's having a good time in high school, as opposed to the rest of us who, pretty miserable in high school. But there are these people who, for some reason, are having a good time. And despite the fact that the kid, if you add it up, he's had a pretty rough time of it himself. His mother's sick and vanished. His father's got a eventually fatal disease. His cousins have burned up. So he's kind of a tough kid, but he's very positive and outgoing and managing things pretty well. So, but without that, I think the story would just be it'd be too bleak to watch. It would be bleak beyond the point of being realistic. And then all I'm doing is shoving everyone in the face with how miserable the world is. Well, no one needs me to tell them that. Just step outside and turn the TV on today or any day.
We got one right here, and I'll bring it over. Okay.
Hi, there was a really fantastic use of classical music in the film, and I think that it really filled some of those palpably tense moments. So I was wondering if that was something that you envisioned while you were writing it. How much of a part did you play in that, and how did you think about it?
Well, I mean, the music was chosen by me with the in consultation with my editor and the composer. But yeah, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. I like it too. It was mostly just, again, being guided by my instinct about what felt right and where. But I think looking back, I don't usually proceed by making decisions. I usually proceed by feeling my way through and seeing what feels right, what feels alive and interesting. And then if I follow that, then usually there's a reason for it later that I could articulate. And, having thought about it for a while and been asked about it a little bit now, I think the music all the music that we selected and the composed music that was put in has a slightly ethereal, beautiful quality to it. And I do think that adds I hope that adds in a different layer to the experience, just the way the ocean is. I keep thinking of how the ocean's always there. It's always beautiful. It's always indifferent. It's not. It just doesn't care about us, but it's still very beautiful, and it's just a fact, and it's just there. And same with the sky. Whatever's happening to you, the sky is going to change all day long, and it's going to be a beautiful sunrise and a beautiful sunset, and most likely, unless it's just totally overcast, but even that looks kind of nice. And again, it doesn't care about us. It's not being beautiful for us. It's just beautiful. And I think that level of experience is reflected in the music to some degree. That's just my guess. It might be something else altogether, but it did end up landing. There was more operatic pieces and there was more rock and rolly pieces, and they just didn't seem to do to the picture what the music that we have in there does do.
I have 3 kind of random questions. One is, I was a rag. Sorry, I have 3 little girls.
It's okay.
What do you think attracted, since Matt Damon wanted to do this himself, and it's so heavy, did he ever share with you what it was that appealed to him about doing it? That's my first question.
Well, I think for Matt, I think the idea that he liked the most was the idea of the brother giving guardianship to his Joe giving guardianship to Lee as an attempt from beyond the grave attempt to save him from the hole that he's fallen into. And I think that idea always appealed to Matt quite a lot. I like that idea. I didn't want to push it too much because I think at a certain point it strains credulity a little bit, that he would take that chance with his own son, given the terrible condition his brother's in. However, I did like the idea, and I tried to buttress it by making the brother very responsible and giving him a participation in taking care over the years when the brother's ill, and establishing the idea that he's come there back a lot, unwillingly, but willingly, but unhappily, to do his duty, and also supporting the idea, which was not mine, that the brothers really tried to keep Lee from sinking into the abyss and has insisted that he remain alive and involved, even though he can't really be fully alive and fully involved. So so the idea was so interesting that and looking for ways to strengthen it and make it more believable was great, because it actually gave me all these other elements which I thought were pretty interesting and interesting to explore and for the actors to play.
Thank you. My second question was, when Michelle Williams was doing that scene with Casey Affleck, one of the things that pulled on me was what she had gone through in her own life.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, when you were shooting it, I know she's done other things, but there's nothing that she's done that quite connected those dots for me emotionally.
She referenced her own life a couple of times. I didn't know her at that time. I know her now pretty well, and I'm really fond of her. I love her. She's also just such a great actress, and she's a wonderful person. She really gave everything to this little part, and she did show up a lot. There's scenes that she did that didn't end up being in the finished film, not because of her, but just because I didn't think they helped the movie ultimately, even though I wrote them and they were beautifully acted. But I don't know. You'd have to ask her about that. I certainly didn't feel like it was my place to trespass.
I didn't know if it would just...
No, it just didn't happen to come up. I mean, I think she might have mentioned it a couple of times, but not too much. I think we pretty much stuck within the discussion of the fiction.
Okay, thanks. And the last one was Matthew Broderick. That seemed kind of a funny kind of...
Yeah, well, I know it's a little bit of, I guess because he's so recognizable, maybe it takes you out of the movie for a minute, but I can't help that. I just think he's a great actor, and I thought he was great in that part, and if people think it's funny that it's him for a second, I'll just have to live with it. I don't think it's funny.
I'm always amazed at acting and actors with doing a repressed character. So I'm wondering, as the director, do you direct them differently when their character is so repressed?
No, because I don't. I mean, it's always what's going on and why are you saying this and why are you doing this and what are you doing and what are you saying? Or if you're the actor, why am I saying this? What am I doing and why am I doing it? Or how am I doing it? And it does, and that applies to everybody in the story. Gretchen Mol can't get through Gretchen Mol plays Patrick's mother. She can't get through, clearly he's prepared this huge dinner and been looking forward to this way too much, is a nervous wreck and can't get through 3 sentences at dinner without having to leave the room. And that's a behavioral thing, and that's part of her emotional life, and it's something if it's necessary, it's something you discuss a little bit beforehand, and you discuss it in terms of the concrete elements. We said that scene has a lot of subtext in it, and we just talked about what the common understanding of how much communication there'd been, what Matthew's character and Gretchen's character had discussed about this meeting beforehand. For instance, I said to Matthew, my idea is that you didn't think this was such a good idea, but she was really for it, so you're supporting her.
Okay.
And then Gretchen and I, she said, or I said, I don't even remember, she's so built up to this that she feels so villainized by her ex-husband and by Casey's character. I said, I think you think they just have this kid spent the last 5 years listening to nothing but terrible things about you that aren't true and that are distortions. So when you're worried he's going to think the meal is terrible because it's not what he eats at home. You're worried he's going to be, everything you do makes you feel like an asshole and like he's just criticizing you, and you think he's seeing you through the eyes of your ex-husband who you had a horrible time with. So you have these discussions, and with Casey's character, I don't think it's a mischaracterization, but I wouldn't describe him as being suppressed. I think he's very actively trying to keep things away from himself. He's very actively every day trying to keep the walls from caving in because he's bearing so much pain that to face it or to think about it is way more than he can do. So he and I talked about the character very much in terms of his active attempts to handle everything, and to get through each day by doing his job, by answering questions, he never rushes through anything. Anybody says anything to him, he answers it, and then he waits for the next question. That's a very active choice, and he does it beautifully. But it makes him seem really weird and suppressed because it's a very private thing he's doing. He's not telling anyone he's doing that, but he's doing it, and you can see it on the screen. That's why his reactions at the hospital are so strange and out of joint because he's in terrible distress, but he's trying to handle it the way he's handled the last 5 years, which is just to do his job. The doctor says this thing to him, and he says, thank you. He waits to see if the doctor has anything else to say. If he doesn't, he then asks his question. And this is a real measured way of handling your environment when you're someone who can't handle spontaneity because spontaneity is too agonizing. So, I mean, I won't, but I could go down the list of all the characters and discuss like how they're approaching their lives and on the big scale, but more interestingly and more pertinently on the small scale of getting through each conversation.
Is somebody have the mic, and do they have a question if they have the mic? We have time for a couple more.
I could make my answers a little shorter.
No. Oh, yeah. Where it's there?
I can repeat it. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
I thought the film had a really strong sense of place, so I'm just wondering why you chose
Question was the film seems to have a very strong sense of place, and why did I choose Manchester? It was a random choice at first. John and Matt said, we were thinking of putting it in Manchester by the sea, but put it wherever you want. And I said, that sounds good, never having been there. But I had been to Gloucester, which is 20 minutes away, and I liked the idea, and I did a lot of research on the town, and I got to know it fairly well when I was writing the script, and much better when we were prepping and shooting the movie, and it worked, and it wove its way into the fabric of the story until I don't think you could unweave it without changing a lot of the material. And I love it there.
Okay, we have time for one more, and
a similar question.
The pressure's on to make the last one the best.
You said
one
you
here.
were from the Upper West Side,
Yeah.
and but you captured the hard veneer of insult and sarcasm that everyone has in the North Shore. Was that a culture you were familiar with, or was it just your time in Gloucester that gave you that?
I don't know. That's how I live my life. I didn't know it was particular to the North Shore. I'm as sarcastic as I can get away with all day long. I don't think I have a hard veneer, though. But I think a little of everything, I guess. I have spent time in Massachusetts. I've spent some time in that part of Massachusetts. It's not a unique characteristic of Massachusetts. It clearly suits the area and is right for the area, because I've gotten this comment a few times, and I'm very happy to hear it, because I always aim for verisimilitude in everything I do. And so it's nice to hear when I've achieved a little bit of it.
I grew up in Rockport, so you captured it. Exactly.
So there you go. No, I'm thrilled. I love, these are my favorite kinds of, this is high praise, and I'm really happy to hear it. But it wasn't like I observed, these people are hard-shelled and sarcastic. I must work that into the script. It just came, I guess it just comes naturally to me. And then
Bravo.
The scenery and the costumes do the rest, and the accents.
All right, we are out of time. Do you want to say anything in summation?
Thank you so much for coming, especially coming tonight. I really appreciate it. And I was thinking about what the relation this movie has to these much more important events that have been happening. And I do think there's one thing about this movie is it's about, or one thing about a movie like this is I think it does connect people to each other. I hope it does. Connects you to someone whose experience may be much, much more painful than your own, or maybe you've had experiences that are this painful. And I think at this point, the more connection, the better. So I really appreciate you coming here to connect with, hopefully, this material.
Kenneth Lonergan, thank you.